Welcome to the Living Ageless and Bold podcast. Each episode, I bring you amazing women who inspire, educate, and share their experiences and journeys along the way. So grab a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's relax and have some fun hearing what can be accomplished after 55. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Living Ageless and Bold. Today, we're going to talk all things health for women over 50. And I'm really excited because my guest today is Dr. Malaika Woods, and she is a board-certified OB-GYN, a board-certified obesity specialist. I'll let her talk about that, and also a functional and integrative doctor. And the reason I'm excited about this is because I just found out about this kind of a doctor, and I just started going to one a few months ago. And it's a game changer. I mean, it literally changed my life. So I'm really excited to have her on and share about what that is. And I'll share some things that I've learned from my doctor. And we're just going to try to fix these things that don't need to be bothering us over 50. So welcome, Dr. Woods.
Thank you so much for having me, Christina.
Okay. So first of all, let's talk about what functional integrative medicine is.
Absolutely. So the way I think about functional medicine, it's really about root causes and natural solutions. So oftentimes you may see the analogy, I like to think of it like an iceberg. And if I were to make a comparison, say traditional to functional medicine is what you see above the surface, often asking the question, what is it? What is the diagnosis? Whereas functional medicine is looking deeper. And if you imagine an iceberg, there's a lot more of it below the surface. So functional medicine is often asking the question, why? We like to say life skills over pills, if you will, or kind of the difference between traditional and functional is that we really want to get at the root cause. And the other neat thing about that too, as far as our bodies are concerned, Christina, is that one root cause can manifest itself in a lot of different ways in the body. And in the same way, addressing that one root cause solution, you can see a benefit in a lot of areas of the body.
Yeah, and so many different directions we can go on this. Let's start with inflammation, because I know that's a big root cause of a lot of things, stress and inflammation.
Absolutely.
So talk about, you don't think about, oh, I'm not puffy, I'm not inflamed, but it's what's happening under the iceberg. So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So, inflammation is an analogy I love to use. So I'm glad you hit on that, Christina. So let's go back to that. So inflammation can show itself. Again, it's not just, like you said, it's not just you're puffy, but brain fog can be a sign of inflammation on the brain. If you're having trouble losing weight, you could be inflamed overall, maybe from external toxins or things that you're exposed to. You can have inflammation in your gut with overgrowth of bacteria, etc. Inflammation can show itself also if you have an autoimmune disease brewing, because inflammation and autoimmune disease really go hand in hand. When your immune system is overreactive, one of the first things that it does is it kicks off inflammatory cascades. And then to your point about stress, cortisol, that main stress hormone, that also kicks off inflammation in the body. So again, you could have brain fog, you could have trouble sleeping, you could have gut issues, you could have aches and pains, and all of that could be the root cause of inflammation.
And I love that you're talking about root cause, because like I said, I had some problems. I went the traditional route, and my doctor's always been a big, medicate. And I'm not a big medicine person. So I, do research. And even before I'd have tests, he's like, this is probably what it's going to be. And we're going to put you on this medicine. Well, then I found the functional, integrative, homeopathic. And, what he said right away was, no. That's just masking your problem. That's just fixing or masking this to create another problem. And learning, like you said, these root causes. And as he said, which I think is fascinating, and you'll know it. It's however you say homeopathic in, I guess, Latin, but it's basically your body heals itself. The body heals the body. So if you can fix these things, you can fix bigger problems too.
Absolutely. And one thing I say all the time is that, your body is divinely designed and has a great capacity to heal. And oftentimes we just need to learn to give the body what it needs. And sometimes it could be some things that are very simple. And oftentimes, with the functional medicine or the integrative doctor, it's not like we're doing, rocket science really. But some of those basic things can have a huge impact on how your body functions.
Yeah. Okay. So women over 50 are listening and watching. Let's go over some of the things. Obviously, menopause is a big thing that we're going to hit. I just watched the M Factor. I don't know if you've seen that. My first guest.
I haven't had a chance to see it yet.
My very first guest, Joe LaMarca Matheson, was the executive producer of it. And it's fantastic. But just watching that, one of the things they said is it's not like, not all women are going to go through menopause. No, every woman with ovaries will go through menopause. So we have to talk about it. We have to discuss, what's happening. And we don't have to hide in shame and live these miserable, 10 years, 15 years. But I want to take the natural, integrative approach to, okay, we're in our 50s. What should we be doing?
Absolutely. So there are definitely some things that women need to be tapping into. And one of the things that I talk about, Christina, is being aware of what I call the menopause pretenders, because sometimes we want to blame everything on menopause and hormones, and that's not necessarily the case.
We can't do
menopause
that?
Pretenders. No, we can't. Now, I'm a big proponent of hormones. Now, trust me, I'm a big proponent of hormones, and I think that is a great way. And I think that's a natural way of just giving the body back what it is missing. So I'm definitely a proponent of that. But what I call the menopause pretenders, a big one is alcohol. A lot of women are having that wine at night, trying to relax and wind down because they're probably more anxious and different things like that. And I think part of that is due to a lack of some of their hormones, particularly progesterone. But alcohol is a menopause pretender because it can fluctuate your blood sugar overnight, which can bring on night sweats throughout the night. So that's one. And one that's kind of related is sugar overall. So those are two menopause pretenders to be aware of. Now, in general, when I think about what are some of the pillars of health that we really want to get in line or optimized? Definitely sleep is a big one. Another one is physical activity. Another one is our nutrition. And unfortunately, a lot of us, even though we know how we should eat, a lot of us are still eating what we call that SAD diet, the standard American diet. So, getting in more protein, less carbs, less grains is what I recommend. I really like the paleo diet, is the one that I recommend a lot, which is basically no grains and no dairy. And then kind of back to the stress again, Christina, I think a lot of people downplay stress. And so when I think about stress, I think about different types of stress. So first off, there is the emotional or perceived stress. If I ask you, how stressed out do you feel? That's one type. But there's also dietary stress, back to what I just said. So sometimes there are foods that you're eating that don't agree with your body that is kicking off inflammation cascades in the body. And then there's pain and inflammation that is another type of stress. And so even though stress can be hard to quantify, it can have a significant impact on how your body is responding in a lot of different ways.
Let's go back to the diet, because obviously protein, and we all know that now that, protein is so important, but it was interesting to hear you say no grains. Do you mean like refined flour, sugar type of grains, rice, potatoes, or you mean brown rice, like everything?
So when I say paleo, and I usually believe in kind of an 80-20 rule. So I recommend people to follow a no grains for probably 80% of their diet. And then 20% would be sort of a healthy grain, like a rice, like a quinoa, things like that. Really encourage people to be gluten-free for the most part as well, kind of 80-20 rule as far as that's concerned. And so then they're focusing on their protein sources. They're focusing on their fruits and veggies, nuts and seeds. Those are all the things that I like to see people focus on in their diet.
Yeah. And it's so you bring up gluten-free too. And it's interesting when you see the European diet and, why the American diet is so bad and with all that gluten in there. And it's basically, right, just to kind of bond food or bond materials together. And then that does that in your body.
Yeah. And I think part of it with our gluten-based products is also the chemicals that are used in the preparation of those products, chemicals in our crops as well. I just actually heard of a big, I think, class action lawsuit about glyphosate or Roundup. So they're not specifically saying if you had it in your, if your food was exposed to it, but they are having a class action lawsuit for people who have been exposed to that chemical, maybe in, farming and things like that. And that's a big issue because some of our, wheat crops are sprayed with that also.
Yeah. It gets frustrating as you get older and wiser and you research more and learn more, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not a crazy big pharma or any of this, but it's like, there's so much money involved in these big companies and what they expose us to and, want us to do and take. And I like the natural approach. Again, something very new in medicine for me, but it's working. I'm taking supplements. I'm not taking drugs. So it's interesting how it really does work. Let's talk about some other things about menopause because it doesn't have to be the end all be all. Hormone replacement therapy got a really bad rap a couple years ago. And again, just recently watching the M Factor, and it's doctors all talking about, no, we need our bodies just to do what it used to do. That's all. And you're going to feel so much better.
Right. Absolutely. So I'm sure it was talked about in the documentary. It was that Women's Health Initiative that came out actually in 2002. So it's been like 22 years. But unfortunately, Christina, a whole generation or two of women have missed out on the potential benefits of hormone replacement. And for your listeners who really want to dig a little bit deeper, one of the books that I recommend, it's called Estrogen Matters. You can't see it, but it's behind me on my shelf here. Estrogen Matters. That's the one I recommend. It's by Dr. Avram Blooming. I don't know if they were even tagged in this documentary or not. But he is a cancer specialist, I believe, who started to research the benefits of hormones because his wife was going through menopause and he was trying to figure out, is this safe or not? So he goes through the data in a superb way. But just to try to summarize it quickly, prior to the Women's Health Initiative, there were 50 years of good data to support the benefits of hormone replacement therapy for women. In particular, Christina, we saw anywhere from 30 to 50% reduction in heart disease, as in heart attack or stroke. We saw anywhere from a 35 to 50% reduction in Alzheimer's. These are some of the things that women are very concerned about for sure. We see like a 30% or so reduction in hip-related fractures related to osteoporosis, and even a 30 to 50% reduction in colon cancer. And when you look at what are the leading causes of cancer in women, colon cancer is one of the top ones. It's really hard to unravel something that you've heard before. But the truth of the matter is estrogen does not cause cancer. But it's so hard to really unravel that thought process. But just to give an example, they've even looked at women who have had breast cancer, through their treatment. And then you compare women with breast cancer who take hormone replacement later and who don't. The ones who take hormone replacement later, they do not have an increased risk of recurrence, or they may have a slightly less risk of recurrence. And I know that may sound counterintuitive to a lot of people, but that's the truth of the data. So, hormone replacement is potentially so beneficial to women. And unfortunately, it's had a bad rap for, like I said, over a couple of decades.
And I grew up with that, that I remember when my mother was talking about it and she's like, oh, and she went off of it immediately. No, this is going to cause cancer. And again, learning now more and more information. And then let's talk about testosterone, because women don't think they need it. And let me tell you, my girlfriends who are using the hormone replacement and adding a little testosterone, they are like, this stuff is great. Like, they feel fantastic. They've got great sex drive. Like, they're like, this is amazing. She's like, my friends are like, how do I give this to my husband?
And you can find the doctor that will see him too.
Yeah.
So testosterone. So great segue into that, Christina, because a lot of people do think testosterone is only for men, which is not true. And then people also think it's only for sexual function, which is not true. Now, giving testosterone to women and optimizing those levels will definitely help with libido and enhance orgasm. But the non-sexual benefits, I think, are very important too. So you can see an increase in energy, mental clarity, building muscle mass over time so that you can start to burn fat more efficiently. Again, it's not a quick weight loss fix, but it's one of those dials that I like to turn in someone's favor as far as metabolism is concerned, because for women in their mid 50s and beyond, one of the big concerns is weight issues. And so testosterone can be playing a role there, as well as some of the other hormones.
And one of the things that I read about, though, is it's difficult for women to get testosterone because it's prescribed for men, and the dosages are more for men versus there was an analogy they used, like a ketchup packet. They said you really need 10 little bits of this ketchup packet every day, trying to get a doctor who can prescribe it the way it needs to be prescribed for a woman.
Yeah, so you've got to get to a doctor who specializes in hormone replacement. And for us who do, we use compounding pharmacies, and they can take those doses down a little bit more specifically to women. And we have various modalities that we can use for the testosterone as well. But you're absolutely right. And some doctors are trying to use the male version and sort of convert it over for women, those big high doses and high concentrations, which really don't work as well. So that's why I like to use a compounding pharmacy for that. But yeah, I tell women, and unfortunately testosterone is considered a controlled substance, just like Vicodin or Percocet. And so I tell them, I can't send you home with a vial of this because it'd be like sending you home with 6 months of Vicodin. I would get in trouble for that. So you have to understand, you've got to get with a compounding pharmacy who can give it in smaller dosages.
Why is that? Why is testosterone like Vicodin?
I think it was back, I don't know if it was probably in the 80s or so, when a lot of the abuse of steroids was happening in the sports industry and bodybuilding, et cetera. And so all testosterone got a bad rap, not only not only the synthetic, which was a problem there, but also the bioidentical versions as well. So that's how all testosterone got categorized as a controlled substance.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Okay. What else for women over 50? Obviously, weight is a problem, an issue, not a problem, but can be a problem as we hit menopause and things slow down. And that's one of your specialties. So what can we do to try to stay healthy and fit through menopause?
Absolutely. Let me also talk about progesterone. I think that's another hormone that kind of gets missed. Let me touch on that too.
Yeah.
Especially the bioidentical version, Christina. I call it my secret weapon hormone because it has two pretty amazing benefits. One is that it has a natural sedative effect. And think of how many women in their 50s are having trouble sleeping and they're getting prescribed sleeping pills. And then we know that there are potential side effects that we have to worry about as far as a long-term use of those sleeping aids. The second thing that progesterone does is that it has a natural calming effect. How many women are feeling anxious and stressed? Progesterone literally works on the GABA receptors, which are those calming receptors in the brain. So when we think about hormones, we don't want to miss progesterone. And that is something I think is important for every woman, whether you have a uterus or not. Sometimes in the traditional world, they only give you progesterone if you have a uterus, but I think every woman can benefit from it for sure. Now, back to your question about weight, definitely, back to the basics as far as looking at your diet and your physical activity. One thing that we all have to realize is that naturally, as we mature, as I like to say, metabolism is going to slow down. So we got to figure out, I always talk about what dials can we turn in your favor. So testosterone is a dial that we can turn in your favor. When you look at your quote unquote balance, I'm using a non-medical term, but when you look at estrogen versus progesterone, when you're going through menopause, both of them decline, but progesterone declines faster. So you in essence can get what's called estrogen dominance. And estrogen dominance is a fat storing state. So that's one of the hormonal changes that is often happening when I see a woman at 51, 52, 55, they grab the middle and they go, I don't know where this came from. I'm getting this belly fat. I'm eating the same. I'm exercising the same. Nothing has changed except for this has come on. And some of that are those hormonal shifts. So how do we meet the estrogen dominance? I don't have a way to bring down estrogen, but we bring up progesterone to, in essence, bridge the gap. That's one thing. Another really important hormone to take a look at is your thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormone often will start to decline in its effectiveness as well. Not that everybody is hypothyroid, they don't have a diagnosis of that. But in the functional world, we just want everything to be optimized. So one of the things that I say all the time is, normal is not optimal, but optimal is best. So we want thyroid optimized. We want progesterone, testosterone. We want to look at cortisol, the stress hormone. These are all the different factors that we look at. And I kind of call it my hormone optimization stack. And those are the ones that we look at to really take a look at what's going on in the body. Insulin is another one because your insulin can start rising. People run the risk of getting insulin resistance or tipping over into pre-diabetes, diabetes. These are the other things that are going to play a role in your metabolism.
And is that something, because we're hearing more and more of it and I'm seeing more friends. And like I said, I'm going through some health issues. Is that just something that we're all going to face? Women over 50, you're just going to deal with, diabetes, pre-diabetes, diabetes, all the things that you talked about. I don't want to say we're all doomed for it, but is there anything we can do to prevent it earlier so that we don't get hit with it?
Absolutely. I wouldn't say that we're all doomed for it, but I would say for a lot of people, if they don't change their habits, then they are going to be potentially heading down that path. So that takes me back to the reason why I recommend like a paleo diet where you really want to diminish your carb intake. Because unfortunately, like I said, as we mature, our bodies just can't necessarily handle the same load of calories, the same load of carbs. So we do have to make adjustments. And part of that adjustment is also getting in your physical activity. And I really encourage women, 55 plus to make sure they're doing strength training. Sometimes women will focus too much on cardio and intense cardio, which can be a good thing, but you got to get your strength training in. I heard someone say that muscle mass is the currency of aging now. So you want to keep that in mind.
I have heard that too. And just to give everybody watching, not everybody our age wants to go to the gym. And pre-COVID, I went to the gym and I don't like it. Like, it's just not my thing. But in COVID, we started doing, my husband had been at a conference and heard this gentleman speak about walking with weights and how, NFL players, he trained them and they were like, oh, I can do that. And they took 10-pound weights. That was it. And they couldn't go a mile. And it really is good. So we started with like 2 pounds and I'm up to 5 pounds. My husband's up to 7 pounds, but we do a whole weight exercise 3 times a week while we walk 3 miles. So those of you who don't want to go to the gym, and you can definitely message me and I can share. I'm not a fitness expert, but it works. We both lost a lot of weight. I feel stronger, better, healthier. And it's really easy to do with little, dumbbells, just walk around the neighborhood.
That's awesome. And that's great advice. And I'm a person too that I've never loved exercise. And I actually, went through a weight loss journey myself. And so I have to find something that's fun to do. So I like to dance and sing. So Zumba is fun for me. And then I also have to have some built-in accountability. So I do have a virtual trainer that I meet with 3 days a week to do my strength training. So you just got to figure out what works for you.
Right. Yeah. And you don't have to go to the gym, but that weight, the muscle training is so important for women our age.
Absolutely.
What did I miss? So if I'm a patient of yours and I come in, what are we going to go over?
So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at an 18-page functional health report. So we're getting an extensive blood panel just to kind of see what's going on in the body from the level of the blood. And then typically I take a deeper dive into some functional medicine specialty tests. One of those that I think is super important and that we didn't touch on yet, Christina, is gut health. And so I think, everyone should get a baseline stool study, not the kind that you get at your traditional doctor's office, but the functional medicine stool study where we're looking for potential overgrowth of bacteria, virus, fungus, worms, parasites, yeast, because any of those things could be a root cause of inflammation in your body. And then I like to look at actual cortisol levels. And it's most beneficial to get the trend of cortisol throughout the day. It's really not helpful to get a single point in time. So I like to look at cortisol via saliva testing because you can submit multiple samples throughout the day quite easily. So those are sort of the deeper dives that I like to take a look at, as well as that hormone optimization stack. And then one of the things that's really important too, Christina, and you may have already noticed this working with your functional medicine doctor, it's really the support that you get. So not only is it me, but I have an integrative nutrition health coach. I've got a lifestyle strategist. So we really want to help you in the process, because the reality with your traditional doctor, and the reason why a lot of times they're going for the script pad first, is because they just don't have the time to spend with you. They don't have the time to do the counseling, because research shows in a lot of instances, whether it's high blood pressure, whether it's diabetes, if you can get a person to make lifestyle changes and help them in that process, they may not need the medication. And unfortunately, they don't have time for that. So what's beautiful in the functional medicine world is that we just have more time. So I literally spend 90 minutes on the first visit, 30 to 45 minutes on follow-up visits, and we just have the time to spend with our patients.
Yeah, I literally just had an hour and a half with my doctor, filling out a questionnaire and going through, because it's not just your body's health, it's your psychology, physiology, and going deep into some things that were a little uncomfortable, just, things that you don't think of, recurring dreams, or recurring nightmares, like things that you just wouldn't think have to do with your health, but it all ties together and it just makes so much sense.
Yeah. And let me say this too, and this is what I love about functional medicine also, is that we're getting away from the traditional world where we kind of view the body systems in sort of these silos. Like we have endocrine, we have GYN, we have rheumatology, we have infectious disease. Everything is so separated. And I think that's part of the frustration sometimes on the patient side. Whereas functional medicine, we go back to looking at you as a whole person, and definitely, your mental, spiritual, and emotional well-being are a part of your healing journey. And we really try to, address all of that, as well as the physical and the physiologic side as well.
Now, I know that you have a center. Is it Minnesota? Is that where you are? Is that where you're located? Missouri. I knew it started with an M. I'm sorry. Do you work with people virtually as well?
So I am licensed currently in the states of Kansas, Missouri, and California. Okay. So if people reside in those places, I can help them one-on-one. And then I have a free Facebook group for just kind of educational purposes. I go live usually weekly there. It's called the Natural Hormone Fix.
Oh my gosh, everyone, the Natural Hormone Fix on Facebook. That's fantastic. Just to have a place to ask questions. And like you said, and I went through that with my doctor. Yeah, he just didn't have time. It's like, okay, your appointment's up and we need to churn you through. If you could even get to a doctor. I'm in the DC metro area, and I tried to get into an endocrinologist, and it was a 12-month backup. And
wow.
Yeah. Wow. I happen to have a client who I interviewed on the podcast who had a friend who got me in on her day off. Otherwise, so it's frustrating too to deal with this. So I love that you have the Facebook group, and if people have questions, and it's so important to share this with all your friends over 50, because a lot of the things you said were just simple. If you were going to give us one or two things to take away from everything that you said, what should we do to start feeling better?
A couple of things that I think about. The first thing, it's really about your mindset, which I think is so important, Christina. So just this idea that whatever it is you're going through right now, like your disease is not your destiny, your diagnosis is not your destiny. And back to that idea that your body is divinely designed and it can change, it can shift. And some things that seem very simple, like cleaning up your nutrition, getting your physical activity, getting your sleep, can really start to change the trajectory of your health. That's number one. Number two, I want to also encourage your listeners to be proactive, be your own health advocate, and understand that you have choices. And, no shade to the traditional world. They are really doing the best that they can within the system that they're in. But understand that you can step outside of that system and seek care from another doctor who looks at things in a different way. So I love, Christina, that you've found your own, functional medicine doctor. So you share your story. and other people can do the same thing. Another place where people can look for a functional medicine doctor in their area, it's the Institute for Functional Medicine, or ifm.org. So you can find someone in your area to help you.
Yeah. And if I have learned nothing else in my journey is you have go with your gut, go with what it feels, and get second opinions. Go to other people. I had the doctor, it wasn't working. Like nothing, the medicines were not working, and it was getting really, really scary. And I had a friend who recommended this doctor, and it's truly been life-changing just the last couple months. So, take your health into your own hands, do what you can. And if you're not sure, you're not comfortable with what a doctor's telling you, just talk to somebody else.
Yeah. And let me say this too, Christina, most functional medicine doctors don't take insurance. So be ready to invest in yourself. I think that's important too. Looking at it like this, I think I look at health insurance kind of like car insurance. Car insurance pays for if you bust your windshield, or, if you get into a wreck, just like health insurance is going to pay for surgery or something major, but your car insurance doesn't pay for gas and it doesn't pay for tune-ups. And so oftentimes if you're looking into optimizing your health, if you're looking into more preventive, proactive things, that's going to be a separate investment. But women out there listening, you're worth the investment.
I love that you say that, because I struggled with that. And I kept looking at my husband. I'm like, we can't afford this. We can't. And that's exactly what he said. Your health is more important than anything. Yeah. And ladies, if you're going to Starbucks every day, or you're going out for happy hour with your girlfriends, which is fine, it's great. But, and I have another friend, and I'll end on this one because it was really profound when she said this. We were all together, and she's like, you guys, we're going for Botox and we're getting our nails done and we're doing all this stuff. But then when a doctor wants to charge you $500, you don't want to go. She's like, we need to get rid of all the other stuff and do that, because that's really, at the end of the day, what matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us, everyone, again, where they can find you, learn more about you. I know you've got resources on your website too.
Absolutely. So the free Facebook community is called the Natural Hormone Fix. You can look it up there. I have a website, drwoodswellness.com. And on Instagram, I am Malaika Woods, MD.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, you guys share this with your friends. You were awesome. This information was fantastic. And real quick, where do you see the state? I usually ask the same questions at the end, but I know you're just 50, but you were helping all of us over 50. But where do you see the state of medicine in 10 years with AI? And do you just see things changing exponentially?
Yeah, I really see that patients are going to really take more of the lead. I've had a mentor say that the patient is the doctor of the future. So I kind of see it in that way, where the patients are going to take the lead. They're going to be more proactive. And I think some of the things that we now consider only available to kind of an exclusive group, I think those things are going to be more open to more people. And I'm hoping that, as far as our kind of our regulations are concerned around food and the health industry, I hope those things will start changing in our favor as well.
I love that. Thank you so much, Dr. Woods. It was really fantastic.
Thank you for having
me. Thank you for listening or for watching this episode of Living Ageless and Bold. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit subscribe. And if you like the episode, I hope that you will give us a great review. You can also head over to livingagelessandbold.com and sign up for information, inspiration, and exclusive opportunities for us, women over 55. Thanks for listening. And remember, no matter what you do, keep living ageless and bold.